Hello everyone, welcome to another video in this full stack Flutter development series. In this video, we'll continue to look at our restaurant API in an attempt to refactor it to make it more robust. As you can see here, all of our API calls doesn't account for authentication. And the issue with that is that all the endpoints to our backend requires a authorization header with a JSON web token in order for it to access the resource. And none of these methods accepts any form of token. And you might think that the best thing now is to, for example, add the token as a part of the method. But the issue with that is authentication is a cross-cutting concern. And if I should add a token to each one of these methods or calls, what would happen is that I will have the token spilling over to every feature or service in my app that requires authentication. And so one of the best way to handle cross-cutting concerns is to use the decorator pattern and to decorate the HTTP client so that we can set up the authentication header from there without the methods, without injecting it directly into the methods. But the thing is, we cannot use this client because we do not have access to its public interface. And even if we do, we would have to implement a lot of methods too. So to solve this issue, what I'm going to do is to create inside the terminal another Flutter package known as common. So I'll go to the terminal and I'll go back to the root. And here at the root, I'll say I'm creating another package. And this package I'm going to call common. So I'll go ahead and create that. And then I will have to open that inside of the workspace. So to open that, I'm going to hit Control R since I'm on the Mac. I'm not sure what the shortcut is on the Windows, but this will bring up the different workspaces. And I'm going to go to the food ordering app workspace. And I'm going to say go inside of common, then hit So I'm inside the app itself, that I want to start inside of this folder. So what I'm going to do is to cd into the common folder, then start up Visual Studio Code fresh. And inside this folder, again, I am going to hide all these things. So I'll hide all these unnecessary files. So now that I've hidden all of those files, I am going to quit this. So I close that window, and now I am just going to open it here inside of the common folder. And so inside here is where I am going to create my own HTTP client, which will be used across the entire application. I'm going to create a folder, shared API. Shared API infrastructure. And inside here, I'm going to create a HTTP client contract. Inside my client contract, I'll have two methods for now. I'll have a get method which accepts a URL and a optional header. And I'll also have a post method. This accepts URL, a string body, and also a optional header. Now both of these methods will return another class that I'm going to create, a HTTP result class. Now this class will have the data, which represents the response body, and a status. And this status I'm going to make into an enum that has either success or failure. To make these into final for a constant. So now here I'll say return a HTTP result. So that's my contract. Now I am going to create the client itself. So HTTP client, and I'm going to call it HTTP client implementation, just so that the name doesn't clash with the HTTP client that's already defined in the dart.io package. So this implements my iHTTP client. Now this implementation is the implementation using the HTTP package from here. So I'll go and I'll get the HTTP package. I'll install that. Then I'll say client HTTP client get that client from there, and here to implement these methods, pretty simple. So I'll say response client get, they'll pass in the URL and also the header. Then I'll say for the response, I'm gonna return a new HTTP result, which the data will be response body and the status being, I'm going to create a new method that accepts the response. So this private method set status, which accepts the response if the response status code equal to, not equal, rather 200, then I'm just gonna return failure. Otherwise return success. And my post method is almost the same thing. So I'm just gonna copy, paste that. And here, instead of get, I'll say post. We have the URL, we have the header, and we have the body. So that's the implementation of our HTTP client. Now we can go back to our restaurant module and go to our pubspec YAML file. And here, as a dependency, I'm going to add my common Here I'm going to add the package, the common package. Then back to my restaurant API, I'm going to replace this client now with the iHTTP client from the common package. And as you can see, it is not there. So we need to export that. I forgot to export it in the common package. So I'll have to go back to the common package. I'll have to go to this file here, remove all this, and say export. So I'll have to export both of those. Remove this test file here. Now if I go back to my restaurant package, I should now be able to access this HTTP client. As you can see, import from package common. Now everything is going to go haywire, and now the refactoring begins. And also our tests, everything is out of whack. But before we start changing out these API responses, I want to, for this restaurant API, instead of returning restaurants here, I want to return a page that has restaurants and other page related metadata, so that the UI can know which page they're on and the limit. I also want to give the UI the ability to pass in the page size or to set the limit on the number of pages, so that instead of doing that from the server, the client can ask for any number of pages that it wants. So I'll create inside my API, I'm going to create a page. And this page is gonna have the current page. It's gonna have the page size and also the list of restaurants. Inside my constructor, let's see, current page, page size, restaurants. Make all these required. So now that we have our page, we're going to go to our API contract, and here, instead of returning restaurants, I'm going to return a page instead. And I'm also gonna say page size. So I'm refactoring the entire API. Here again, not a list of page, but a single page. For find restaurants, it's a similar thing. Return a page. Then for get restaurant and get restaurant menu, those can stay as it is. So now inside of our API implementation, we have quite a few changes to make. So for our find restaurants method, we need here the page size. And then we need to add the page size to the URL. So in this case, I'm going to say and limit equal page size. And so that creates the URL for our find restaurant. And then also I want to make all these required. I'm also going to change all these responses to result. So I'm going to hit Command and F2 to select all. And I'm going to change it to result. Since we are returning an HTTP result in this case. So we have that. Go here. Then instead of a response, it's going to be a HTTP result. And now, if result status is equal to status failure, then return null. otherwise decode the data. For this menu, this can be response. Actually, it needs to be result. Then inside the menu, HTTP result, same thing here. Result status, if that's equal to failure, else decode the data. So inside of our find restaurant, our method definition is now page. This should now return a page. So basically, wherever there is list of restaurants, I am going to refactor that to return a page. So now our find restaurant is good, or get all restaurants. Here we need page size. That's good. Or get restaurant. Need result. If that's equal to failure, then return null, else the data. Then our get restaurant by ID. Well, here we need to also add the page size to the URL. So, and limit equal to the page size. So now that's that. Location, we need our page size. Then here we need to add our page size. So, and limit page size. So that is the endpoint for our restaurant by location. That's good. So here we need to be returning a page instead. So I'm gonna store this in a restaurants, since we are extracting the restaurants there. And then I'll return a page where the current page is going to be the metadata from the JSON. So I'm going to say metadata page, and the page size is going to be also the metadata. That's the limit. And then our restaurants will be our restaurants extracted. So we return a page there. So now we have refactor all our methods to be used in the page and also to be used in our new HTTP client. Now we need to refactor all our tests. So let's get into it quickly. The first thing I want to do is to refactor our method here to return a JSON object that has both an array of restaurants and the metadata. So that's the array of restaurants, and in this case it will be restaurants, then above that we'll have metadata. This will be a JSON with page. I'm gonna just set it to 1, and the limit I'm gonna set that to 2. So there is our payload that we're expecting from our server to be like this. I also gonna change the client to HTTP client. Rather, instead of mocking this, I'll mock HTTP client. So I'm gonna comment everything to the last group. And I'm going to test group by group. So this should return a result instead of a response. So this should return a HTTP result. The data and the status. Success. So our result should look like this. JSON encode. We have a JSON object with the metadata and the restaurants. Then we need to pass in the page size. So I'm going to rename this to page. So page restaurants should be null or should be empty. To the next test, again, instead of response HTTP result, this should be a failure. Change this to page. Then I'm gonna say I'm expecting page is null. So that's that. And here, just gonna say HTTP result JSON encode. All I need here is the method itself, since it's returned in the correct format, and then success. So if I should go ahead now and run these tests, let us see what will happen. So we are getting an error, and that's because I've accidentally added the information to restaurants menu instead of restaurants. So what we have here in terms of all of this, this should be inside of here. So if we run the test again, now we have our tests passing. So I'm just gonna go ahead and refactor the rest of the tests, guys, and then come back. So on refactoring the tests, I realized that I was using get restaurant as singular instead of plural. So go ahead and change that in the API contract to say get restaurants, since it's a list, and also inside of the API implementation itself. So it'd say get restaurants, and there you have it. So now all my tests are passing. Everything is good. So we have completed the refactoring of our API. So our API is now good. We are using our own HTTP client so that we can add authentication to this client easily, so that such a concern won't spill over into the other modules by passing tokens to every method. So that is good. So thank you for watching this video, guys. In the next video, we'll move into creating our states using Qubit, and see you in the next one. And remember, the code is on GitHub, so you can go there and check out the code and try and refactor the tests by yourselves to see how that goes. So see you in the next one.